this is going to be one of the most controversial videos I have ever made. So, the 4x4 Rubik's Cube, it is mostly loved. I have seen a few people hate it, but generally, people don't really dislike this puzzle or event. However, there is one problem when classifying it. I have seen, usually people tend to classify this as a big cube, just like me. But I know some people, not going to mention names, but some people don't list this as a big cube. So in this video, we're going to see which side is more correct. Now, logically, it may seem sense that this should be a big cube. Like, the 3x3 was the original Rubik's Cube. People all over the world are so used to seeing a puzzle with 3 layers, not 4. But if they see a 4x4 Rubik's Cube, they could be like, whoa, no, I've never seen a Rubik's Cube of 4 layers. That must be a big Rubik's Cube. Yes, I'm talking in non-cubit terms, but you gotta admit, if you've like played with the 3x3 and then switched to a 4x4, it's bound to feel a little bit bigger, obviously. And that's kind of the general consensus of why this is a big cube. The 3x3 was the original, and the 4x4 is bigger, so it's a big cube. And if you don't accept that, at least you can accept that all these other ones are big cubes. The 5, 6, and 7. Now, if you're thinking about going the other way, well, the 2x2, it was called the Pocket Cube or Rubik's Mini, I think. I'm not sure. But it definitely the name kind of sounds small, so it does make sense. I'm not going to say for sure, but I'm going to guess most people will agree with that definition of a big cube. However, there is one pretty convincing argument. The most common method for solving a 4x4 is reduction. Now, here's basically a 4x4 being reduced into a 3x3. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you basically solve all the centers, then you solve all the edges. As you can see here, you basically make the centers and you pair up the edges. What this does is reduces it into a 3x3, but with bigger centers and thicker edges. So as you can see, this white blue is the same, this yellow red, this yellow center, and these are effectively the same thing. So for the most part, you can solve this like 3x3. I say for the most part because on even laid cubes, there's this parity error, but I'm not going to go into that. So on other big cubes, reduction seems to be the most popular method. 5x5 is a little bit debatable, but I'll discuss that in another video. However, people tend to agree on that the best method for 4x4 is Yao, and I actually think this too. So basically what happens in Yao is you make the first 2 centers. So as you can see, I made the white and yellow center, and this is the same in regular reduction where you solve the 2 opposite centers. But before you make your other centers, you want to make your cross. So I'm quite bad at this, but someone's probably cringing at me now. So here we have one cross piece, and we're gonna put that in to the cross. And okay, here's one ready, made, and we need to follow the color scheme. And let's see here, this blue, we go like this. And now we can make the last cross, where is it here? We can make the last cross edge like that. But before we insert it into the cross, we're going to firstly solve the other centers while preserving that cross piece. And then once we're done solving these centers, we can move this into the cross. And as you can see, we've done all our cross. And then basically what happens from here is the edge pairing stage is basically the same, except the cross is already solved. So usually what people do here is this thing called a 3-2-3 edge pairing, which makes it extremely fast. So that's why sometimes people think 4x4 should be in a category all on its own, because you use a completely different solving method. Well, apart from some people that still use reduction, like me in 2020, but the majority of people do use Yao on 4x4, and it is the best method. So that can be a reason for not calling a big cube, because you literally solve it differently. Those are basically the two main points when arguing for either side. For me personally, I will say that 4x4 is a big cube. Please don't attack me. Just because I don't really care about the solving method. It can stay a big cube because it's bigger than the original 3x3. That's all what matters to me. But let's bring in these guys. So, some people say that 4x4 isn't a big cube, but some people also split the gap here. Some people say that 5x5 is not a big cube. Now, why do some people say this? Well, possibly because of the rise of Yao and 5x5, but I think that's not a good enough excuse. I think the main reasons, maybe some of the main reasons, that 5x5 has really good hardware. This is not a good example to budget 5x5, but some people say that 5x5 has really good hardware, and that's what makes it not a big cube, because big cubes don't have good hardware. So I guess it's not going for it. I can kind of see where it comes from. Like, I don't know if anyone's had this kind of thought, but there's this kind of massive time jump when you get from 5x5 to 6x6. Is it just me? Probably. But some people think that. But some people, and I've only heard one person say this, but I heard someone say that the gap should be split here. They say that anything below a 7x7, which is the highest n by n in the WCA, should be a big cube. Now, this actually kind of makes sense. If you're a speed solver and dealing with these kinds of puzzles all the time, and then you suddenly see this massive 8x8, I don't have one, it can seem big, and that does make sense if you want to call that a big cube. I mean, it is a big cube, but to not call this a big cube can seem reasonable, because, you know, sometimes you're just dealing with it all the time, and sometimes it just doesn't even feel like a big cube. So I can see where the argument is coming from. Although personally, I would call these big cubes, but I would call anything above the 8x8 large cubes. Like, you know, they're big, but they're like big, but bigger. These are kind of just big. These are big, but bigger. So tell me in the comments, where do you think 4x4 should be a big cube? Honestly, this video might seem a bit silly in the first place, but maybe it might spark a debate in the comments. So tell me what you think about it in the comments below. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.